Everybody wants to talk about the fact that AEW All Out has moved their start time because we're also getting WWE WrestlePalooza on Saturday 20th of September 2025. It also ties to the fact that All Out will now be streaming live on HBO Max in America. These are big things. Very sadly, they are not directly referenced to the wrestling product itself. But as we are a daily upload wrestling channel, which you could subscribe to right now, I'd massively appreciate it. Smash that button. We are going to talk about all of it. So yes, the start time to All Out 2025 has been moved, and I saw some people on the internet say this is cowardly, and I almost cried into my cereal. You should never interrupt my cornflakes, because it's the best part of the day. I don't really understand what the argument is anymore. Of course, it ties into this idea of competition in the marketplace. It happens everywhere. Like, as a fan of professional wrestling, I would much rather not have to cram every single show into a weekend, and you can argue there's dubious tactics here, aggressive tactics. I'm dubious about it. There's aggressive tactics here, but it happens in wrestling, it happens in sports, it happens in entertainment, it happens all over the place, especially in a world where you have these huge streaming services who are trying to make money in, even though more people do watch on streaming now than ever have done before, there's still this weird divide between cable television or terrestrial television and what streaming is meant to be. Like, my parents just kind of watch things. They don't even think about this because it's a generational thing, and in 50 years, we'll all be watching on streaming and nobody will ever give a flub about it. But to start making accusations like people are cowardly, I don't even understand what that means. I mean, you could argue it's a brave thing to do. These are stupid words. But you could argue that it's a brave thing to do if you want to get into that debate, in the sense that Tony Khan probably knew he would get a bunch of people yelling at him, going, "No, I can't believe you did this," and other people saying the opposite. So the fact that he did it, ultimately, I want the fan experience to be the best it possibly can be. Would it have eaten into what AEW is going to do, or vice versa? Potentially. But I think most deep down, if you're an AEW fan, you're going to watch the AEW show. If you're a WWE fan, you're going to watch the WWE show. And if you're just somebody like me that enjoys in wrestling in general, you'll just get them in when you can. Like, I think the issue is, of course, is that the one you don't watch is probably going to get spoiled for you, just because that's the world we do live in when it comes to social media. But at the same time, you don't have to go on that thing. I mean, X especially is a dumpster fire. Did you get anything good on that platform anymore? And taking a social media break is not the worst thing in the world. And I'm sure that AEW doesn't like it. I'm sure that WWE is doing it deliberately. But it happened with the WCW times. It even happened when, TNA, right, when they won that big show in 2010, I believe it was. I think that's right. They went head-to-head with WWE. That was them taking shots, and it didn't work at all. And AEW doesn't really do that anymore. I think they've definitely stayed in their own lane, which I think actually works better for them, which is probably why they're happy to move. Maybe there would be at a time when they would have dug their heels in the sand and been like, no, we're not moving, we are going to do this. But it probably makes more sense. And listen, there's always knock-on effects to all of this. I'm performing at Smash Wrestling in Canada. Come on down, buy your ticket today. And that was meant to end at 3 p.m, I believe, so everybody could get to the building because it's 5 minutes away. And now I think they've done a social media post about this, they're going to have to move everything up. So there's always a knock-on effect, but ultimately everybody is doing this because they want, to use that term again, the fan experience to be as good as it possibly can be. So I really try not to overthink it other than that, because otherwise you just get lost in the grifting and people yelling at everybody else. But AEW picked that date. WWE then decided to run on that date as well. So you should be as flexible as you possibly can be in order to get the product you believe in to as many people as possible. That probably sounds like a decent business plan. And listen, both shows look awesome. Right? There's lots going on. The AJ Lee CM Punk tag team match that's probably going to be confirmed tomorrow is going to be totally nuts. You're either going to get Cody Rhodes versus Drew McIntyre or Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton, both big matches. John Cena versus Brock Lesnar is controversial. We talked about it in terms of marquee. You're still going to get a lot of people talking. And something else was hinted at the other day as well, which I now can't remember. But that's also going to tie into the fact they're going on ESPN the first time, which is amazingly, like we talked about, All Out being on HBO Max the first time, which is it's just mad how this is going to happen. But long may it continue, is what I will say, because it means that AEW and WWE will be around. And I want the TNAs, and I want the Ring of Honors, and I want the CMLLs, and all of it. I really, really do. I don't want to go back to an occasion. One of the worst periods of wrestling was that sort of 15, 20-year gap when there was only one dominant leader, because then they can do whatever they want. And if they want to be a little lackadaisical and creative, they can be, because there's nobody nipping at their toes. I mean, it's one of the reasons I think the Bloodline angle was so good, because it had to be. We have to separate ourselves from the pack, because there are these other companies swimming around, so let's make sure We go back to the tippity top. I mean, it kind of ties into AEW Dynamite last night, which I mostly wanted to talk about. Don't know the direction for Hangman Adam Page. I mean, I've got this kind of weird idea. I love the 6-man tag team match. It was a 6-man, 8-man tag team match. And I got a message from somebody saying, oh, fine, it's just a PWG match. Like, that would be of offense to me. I love PWG. The fact we can now put this on national television, I think, is awesome. This is probably a bit of a hot take and a bit of an asshole hot take, so I'll apologize. You'll probably roll your eyes and get mad at me. I think that's fair. I think a lot of people that say that don't understand what independent wrestling is. They look down on independent wrestling like it's some terrible thing. As an independent wrestler, well, I'm not an independent wrestler. I am a wrestler who happens to perform on the indie scene. It can be wonderful and it can be brilliant. Actually, it can be better than the big shows because it's so intimate and you can actually talk to fans and get that face-to-face experience. But I think a lot of people that say that just never, well, you don't have to be into it. Of course, you could be into the big bombastic wrestling leagues. Of course you can. There's no way it can be a bad thing that you can take that style and put it on national television, because as long as there's an audience for it, which there is, you're going to be totally fine. Now, of course, people will throw ratings at me. Ratings don't even mean anything anymore as we go completely off whack, because nobody knows what WWE's actually doing on Netflix. That is the most boring argument you get all the time. It's not that I don't care, I just don't mind. I hope they're doing well if they're not there. Same with AEW, people still rely on that demo number and the overall viewers without even thinking, well, how many people are watching on HBO Max? Like, even if it is, someone the other day said to me, well, what if it's only 100,000? Well, then when they do 500,000, they're up to 600,000. That's way better. The demo probably goes up too, but we do not know what any of these figures are. But I never want to base my entertainment value of a show on some numbers. And there are some people out there that act like that's what they are doing. I mean, what a sad way to live. And again, it's a horrible thing for me to say, but you should enjoy something because it hits you in your tum-tum and it makes you feel something. And when I see Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, Jet Speed, the Young Bucks, Josh Alexander, and Carl Fletcher flying around the place with their timing, their position, and that mad spot when they were doing TK drivers all over the place, whatever the flub we're calling that now, and on Barry Barricade too, it's just so hard to pull off. And they rarely waffle anything either. Like, it's so damn smooth and their mistakes are kept to a minimum. And Carl Fletcher getting the win over Kevin Knight, I think, is big too, because of course it was also Carl Fletcher that put Kenny Omega through the table. And there's numerous things I think we need to get in there. One, totally guessing, it does feel like Kenny Omega has been written off TV again. And I hate saying this because it's all speculation, but he does look like he's in a bit of pain. You know, he did come back from a life-threatening illness, so it does make sense. And also, Kenny Omega is a generational talent. Even his top level now is still better than most, but it's always a comparison, right? You know, he was so great. But I don't even think that's a bad thing. I wouldn't even call it a negative. He's like a 41-year-old man. He can slow down. I don't care. Or I wouldn't even notice him slowing down, but I'm sure he would say that if you talk to him. But if he needs time off, few people are giving more to professional wrestling in the modern day than him. But it's a shame because he's a massive star. But given that it was Carl Fletcher that was allowed to do this and that he got the win, obviously we're teasing it's going to be Carl Fletcher versus Mark Briscoe soon for the TNT title. I'd imagine Hangman Adam Page is now pretty pissed off at Carl because he took out his friend. Who else is involved with Mark Briscoe? It's MJF, who very oddly wasn't on the show. I thought that was a disappointment. I thought we needed a video or the commentators saying something. But then, very smartly, you've got all these four people kind of interlinking and coming together, and then you could do the Mark Briscoe, Carl Fletcher TNT feud, and you can go back to the MJF Hangman Adam Page World Title feud, maybe do some tags, do some offshoots, etc., before we do get to All Out. I suppose you could say it's a bit weird that Hangman doesn't have another world title contender. I don't want it to be Carl Fletcher. He is the TNT champion. You know, this is one of my bugbears, not saying I'm right, not saying I'm wrong, but if somebody has a championship, I like them to be focused on that championship and not dip their toe into other waters, because I just think by proxy it lessens the belt that they do have. That's probably a Simon Miller issue that you don't need to worry about. But great main event. I mean, solid, big go-home angle, especially if it does go in that direction. And you had the Mark Briscoe stuff beforehand. He beats Lance Archer so he can finally get a win. And he has to take on Takeshita on Collision to get his TNT title shot. And I think Mark Briscoe's going to win. And he's probably going to win because the Don Callis family accidentally on purpose take out Takeshita. There's no way he's in that group for that long. It's probably why Wardlow got put in there. And Carter called him a bitch on national television. So I don't think he's going to be happy about that. And also with the likes of Kenny Omega going away and people like Will Ospreay being out and Swerve Strickland being out, we do need some new baby faces, and people really seem to like Takeshita. I've seen some people saying, well, you know, he's not the best promo in the world. There must be a manager, we can get him, or you can come up with a way to make it work. I think that's being a little bit mean to old Takeshita before we've even given him an opportunity. So that's how he can beat Takeshita, Mark Briscoe, and then you can have Takeshita feuding with Okada, which again is an incredible match. match. The Wardlow thing was also a negative from the show. I don't think I saw his face, which is weird. Nobody mentioned him. And he's come back up Forbidden Door, sort of had a faceless appearance on Dynamite, or a voiceless appearance on Dynamite. And then we haven't had that big promo. I just think you always need that big promo. I really, really do, because then you kind of jump on the momentum, which was also my issue with Toni Storm. Why are we talking about all the negative things? What are we doing? Well, it's because it was a decent show otherwise. But I think Toni Storm needed to jump into another world title program right away, just to keep, once again, the momentum going. That's the key word. It's why I would have had her lose to Athena, and then she win it back at All Out, just to inject a bit of life into that thing. I don't think anybody would have minded having those two back to back, but these are minor details. It's not like you watch the show and go, oh man, it's rubbish now. But it's almost like it's the lack of something that is sort of the theme here. So there was no MJF, there was no Wardlow, and there was no world title challenger for Toni Storm. Love Mercedes Moné versus Alex Windsor. Just thought it was a good old-fashioned fight. No nonsense either. Big fan of boring wins. I'm going to call it these days. Rio coming back, always awesome, an OG character. You want those people to hang around, because it does, as crazy as it sounds, we're over half a decade in now, so you're going to get the nostalgia. And the opening was just nuts. I like the fact the Death Riders are still able to, well, piss off the entire babyface locker room. It's nice that we didn't do I've gone heel, so I'm going to wear black shades and a black coat and come out to dark music now. It's way better that we've just gone, well, no, they're assholes and people don't like them. Because you have Gabe Kidd and Darby Allin trying to kill each other, and then Samoa Joe and the Operations, and somebody, Hook was here, and somebody else too. I think Will Nightingale ran out to take on Marina Shafir, which is also on the match we need to get to sooner rather than later. I don't really know what we do with that. We're clearly going to do Gabe Kidd versus Darby Allin. I would do that before the pay-per-view. I think the pay-per-view should be Mox versus Darby. Let's not stand on ceremony here, Mr. Wayne. And Darby's been back for a few months, and you want to jump into the big match so we don't miss the peak. Maybe they just square off with everybody else, because it was Claudio and Wheeler taking on Bandido, or Brodito, I should say, later on. In no world did Claudio and Wheeler earn a title shot, but it was an amazing match. And then Brody and Bandido retaining their tag titles is only going to help them. But I would like them to have a better feud. But I mean, maybe that's what we're going to do. Maybe we're just going to sprinkle people off with each other. But then, I mean, who the hell is Claudio sort of one-on-one? That's interesting. And again, Samoa Joe and the Operations are still the Trios champions. I'm not entirely sure, as I do say that. I wouldn't mind getting those belts onto Ricochet and the Gates of Agony or the Hurt Syndicate, because those two teams are about to come together as well. Very excited for MVP getting back in the ring. I just like MVP. I think it's cool. And I would imagine, again, completely speculative on my end, he probably doesn't have that many matches left, just because he's closer to the end than he is the beginning. But it's awesome. And him with Shelton and Bobby Lashley just works. And I'm a huge fan of Ricochet. We talked about this before, my Bald King. And the Gates of Agony, how awesome is it to see them getting showcased as well? They busted their ass. They've been at every single level of AEW. Now they have a proper group. They're getting more screen time. Leona just went crazy during this promo. But that's good. I like that a lot. And hopefully we can continue to develop them. And Harley Cameron and Chris Statlander, well, actually, I like them as a team, but I would break them up too. I think Chris Statlander, after the conversation, should join the Death Riders. And then Willow Nightingale should become Harley Cameron's buddy, because that's just great positive energy all around. And then if they are feuding with Marina Shafir and Chris Statlander, then Willow can take out both of her foes, because we need to get to those matches. But it was very, very easy to watch. I'm sure I've forgotten something. I usually do. But it was I love it in the ECW arena. I've already talked about it, but it just... I don't have to worry about how many tickets AEW sell, and nor do I want to. I hope they can sell 42 million tickets one day. But getting to watch an arena that I watched, when I was 10 years old or whatever, the flop, less than that, 8, 9, whatever. But getting to see that again, but with modern wrestlers and a modern product and something that's not WWE, I think AEW is happier to look a little bit grittier compared to WWE, who understandably wants the high production values. Well, it just reminds me of some crazy stuff that I've forgotten about. I mean, in the first place, I probably saw Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. Maybe in the first place, I saw Chris Jericho and figured out who Steve Austin was. To see it all again, and listen, I'm not going to argue it's not personal to me, but anytime you watch a YouTube video, you should know it's all going to be personal. You know, I performed in that arena when I did the Last Match musical. You're going to have to Google that if you want the information. We've talked about it too many times. But to sort of have that personal connection too, I just think it's awesome. And AEW maybe doesn't feel as on fire as it did coming into All In. I think kind of it's not flattened off, that's not right, but it's just sort of entered a nice pace of things. But it's always a good television show, I find, Dynamite. The few things that I would give downs to, again, ups and downs over in What Culture Wrestling, are just many things that stand out to me, but they don't take away from the overall show. And of course, we could be showcasing more people, but you know, you have to watch both Collision and Dynamite to see what's going on there. But the big chat for the next 3 weeks is going to be All Out versus WrestlePalooza. I'm just going to look at it like it's great that we're getting these two big shows. It would be way better if one was Saturday and one was Sunday. I mean, I think there's too many PLEs anyway, especially from WWE's point of view, only because they would benefit from being able to build these things more. But that's their decision, and they're doing very well financially. So I'm not going to sweat about it, and I'm certainly not going to start throwing barbs like some people on the internet are. And using I know I said it at the start, but using the word cowards. I mean, what? You dragged up cowards. It's a horrible thing. If nothing else, if you want to look at it in the most basic fashion, Tony Khan didn't have to spend $100 million of his family's money to start a wrestling promotion. You could hate it and you could think the death of wrestling, that's fine. But it has, it's benefited the business and the industry all around, if for nothing else, that wrestlers' pay packets went up and it calmed the schedule down. These two things are absolutely awesome, and it's probably going to prolong careers and it's going to increase morale. I'm getting way off track here, but some people just say things to say things because they act like these people aren't human beings, and they most definitely are. So if I'm going to be the annoying positive Pete to say the other thing because I believe it too, that's what I shall do. But as always, my opinion doesn't matter. Your opinion matters. Make sure you drop me a comment below. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. You can click the video from yesterday as we do talk about AJ Lee's return to WWE and how a lot of you think it's going to help WWE. We got into your comments. But yes, otherwise, just do all that stuff down there. Please do subscribe. You can go to grillermind.com/Simon and use my code Simon to get money off all their fitness supplements. They are the best and they ship worldwide. Patreon.com/Simon316 to get my watch alongs. Only $5. Come and have some fun with me. I'm going to start doing some writing content on there as well. I put the first one up for free, but that's either going to be a good thing or a bad thing. New fitness channel, going to talk about The Rock's body soon. Stupid sentence, is down there as well. Otherwise, just search for my name on social media and TikTok and Pro Wrestling Tees, Big Cartel, and Cameo. Doing loads of cameos at the moment, lots of birthdays and weddings. So it must be that time of year. I appreciate you for stopping by. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday or whatever day it may be. Bald Idiot, we'll see you soon.